Peace to the 12, man. You know, we back. Y'all see the title, original Europeans, sons of Japheth. I repeat, original Europeans, sons of Japheth. This is a video long overdue. And we're going to be titled on the original inhabitants of the European continent. Okay? And they're going to seem to look a little different than you think that they would look. And like I always do in my historical videos, I'm going to use pictorial evidence. I'm going to use historical secular sources. I'm going to go into the scriptures, obviously, and it's some more stuff, scientific peer-reviewed research, anthropology, that type of deal. All right, so let's get to it. Right, for those of you that don't know, of course my computer freezes. Of course it does. But anyways, so as you guys don't know, Japheth, according to the Bible, Japheth was the son of Noah, and he was the progenitor of many tribes inhabiting the east of Europe and north of Asia, like the Celts, Gomer, the Ionians or Greeks, Javan, and then they threw in the Aryans. I'm gonna deal with them later. All right, you know, moving on down. A lot of people, they like to say that this is an accurate depiction of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I'm gonna debunk this. I'm gonna debunk it, even though they debunk themselves, because when they show you Hamites on the TV screen, they're depicted as Caucasians, but whatever. I.e. see an Exodus movie, see a Philistine movie, see whatever. But so Japheth, you know, I'm gonna go back on the meaning of Japheth once I go to the video, because I want to go ahead and speed on through. But in the Mishnah, which I don't believe, and I'm about to debunk it right here. In the Mishnah, which is what the Jewish people believe, they tell you that in this Perkei chapter 24, they'll tell you that Noah brought his sons and his grandsons, and he blessed them with their several settlements. He gave them as an inheritance all the earth. He especially blessed Shem and his sons, making them dark but comely. So he says Shem and his sons were dark and comely, which automatically debunks the current people who claim to be of the lineage of Shem, at least the bulk of them, because we do know you are your fathers. But it says right here that Shem's sons were dark but comely. That means they're not so-called white people. Then he says he blessed Ham and his sons, making them dark like the raven. That means the people jet black like the Sudanese, the Dinka, the Nuer, the Nilotic people, the really dark-skinned so-called black Africans. And he gave them as an inheritance the coast of the sea. Now watch this. He blessed Japheth and his sons, making them entirely white. Okay, so they said that he blessed Japheth by making him entirely white. First of all, according to the scriptures, that would be a plague. That'd be a plague of leprosy, because we know that Miriam lost her pigmentation and became white as snow. That was viewed as a plague of leprosy, which modern day times would be viewed as what they call vitiligo. Same thing happened with Moses when he stuck his hand in his garment, pulled it out, became white, put it back, got his pigmentation back. So anyway, it says Japheth and his sons were made entirely white. So they're telling you that Japheth, which once again Japheth is the person who inhabits Europe, they're telling you that Japheth is a so-called Caucasian. Okay, they're telling you that this is accurate. And I've heard a lot of people, even people that claim to be Israelites, I've heard them run with this. I believe Lee Cummins has went with this. He was an author. Lee Cummins said that Japheth was a so-called white man. Pastor Dow said Japheth is a so-called white man. Dante Fortson, I believe, said that Japheth is a so-called white man, as well as Ronald Dalton Jr. and other people, probably. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say this. But in reality, when it says Japheth and his sons were made entirely white, that is balderdash, poppycock, that is cap, okay? And you're going to be exposed today, man. All right, we're going to find out who the original sons of Japheth are. We're going to find out who the real Europeans are. So let's get straight to it, man. We're going to expose. What does it mean to expose? We're going to make something visible by uncovering it. We're going to uncover the reality of who Japheth is. We're going to uncover the reality of the original, the aboriginal, meaning the first, aboriginal means first, Europeans. Okay? And the scripture comes to mind, which is Isaiah 26. And I'm going to start at 6. Isaiah 25 and 6. And in this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines on the lees well refined. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Okay? So there is a veil that is spread over all nations. There's a cover up. There's a veil that's spread over all nations, and he's going to destroy this. Okay? And we know there's another scripture that says, surely the Lord would do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets to the servants, the prophets, paraphrasing. Okay, so the Lord will show certain men the way to the truth. Okay? But, yeah, it says, he was destroyed in this mountain, the face of covering and cast over all people. Right now, there's a cover and there's a veil over people. Covers all nations, covering, cover of nations, cover. Now, the word veil means a face covering. Okay, identities have been hidden. Once again, they tell you that Japheth is a so-called white man, but the so-called white man, you're going to find out, is not the first inhabitant of Europe. All right, that's the whole point of me doing this video, and I'm going to prove it, man. I'm going to prove it. So, veil, once again, is a face covering, a cover up. What is a cover up? To put something on top of or in front of something in order to protect or conceal it. So they have concealed the real history, even though it's not really concealed, because if you Google it, it'll tell you. Which brings me to where I'm at now. Now we're about to go to what according to the science, right? So now, first things first. Google it. Just Google it, man. If you Google it, you'll get some interesting results. Now watch this. Google, the first people of Europe were black. Correct. And let me say this too before I go any further. This is not going to be a Negro-focused video. Okay? The first people of Europe were not so-called Negroes. The first people of Europe were what you would view today as the so-called Australoids. Okay? Your Polynesian, your Australian Aboriginal, your New Zealand Aboriginal, Tanzanian, that Polynesian so-called, at least the pure Polynesian type of deal. Okay? Now, the first people of Europe were black. Now, Google. The archaeological, anthropological, and genetic evidence indicates that the first Europeans were dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africans who carried mtDNA haplogroup N and Y chromosome C6 into Europe. So even Google tells you that the first inhabitants of Europe were so-called black, which automatically debunks this association that this guy being Japheth. That's debunked. Okay? And at the end of the video, I'm going to spin back and deal with the name Japheth and what it means. Some people are going to say, oh, it means fair. He was fair-skinned, yada, yada. I'm going to spin back on that later, like towards the very end. But, yeah, they tell you the first Europeans were dark-skinned sub-Saharan Africans, which is, to me, even incorrect. Because, once again, the original inhabitants of Europe were more similar to the so-called Australoids. Okay, but look, The Guardian. First modern Britons had dark to black skin. Cheddar Man. Daily Mail. Europeans were dark-skinned until 8,000 years ago. Turns out the first British people were actually black. Okay, you see all that? Right? So you're going to find out that you've been lied to, man. You've been lied. Oh, another person I realized that says that Japheth is the so-called white man is Kurameo Ahau, man. Alright? So, y'all forward them. If y'all want, y'all can forward them this video, man. Which I'm sure a lot of them, I ain't going to say all of them, but I'm sure some people know that, but they just hide it anyway. I'm not saying they are particularly, but a lot of people do. Okay? Cheddar Man. For those of you who know, this is Cheddar Man. Remember, it said first modern Britons, dark to black skin. Cheddar Man. This is Cheddar Man. Cheddar Man. Okay? Dark-skinned person. Cheddar Man lived around 10,000 years ago and is the oldest, almost complete skeleton of our species, Homo sapiens, ever found in Britain. So this guy is one of the first. This guy's one of the oldest people they ever found in Britain, and he was a dark-skinned man. Okay? Cheddar Man discovery first modern Briton had dark skin. As a reminder, we are all from Africa, expert says. Daily Mail, Africans who were in Britain before the English. Now let's go into books, okay? Now that's just if you Google it. Now let's deep dive into the texts that the so-called Caucasian has written down. All right? So we're gonna go to Devin Ritchie. Guy I reference all the time. Devin Ritchie was a Caucasian guy born in the mid-1800s. He was born in 1851. He died in 1925. And Devin Ritchie wrote a book, and he was an anthropologist, by the way. Anthropology means the study of origin and development of human societies and cultures. So Devin Ritchie was a so-called Caucasian man born in the mid-1800s, and he wrote a book titled Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1. There's also a Volume 2. But we're going to be focusing on Volume 1 for this video. Ancient Modern Britons, Volume 1. And he's going to state something very interesting. We're going to go to page 7, the Australoids. We're going to go down to the highlighted portion for sake of time. The importance of studying this Tasmanian section of Australoid division is very apparent. Not only does Mr. Huxley argue from the appearance of certain existing Britons that they represent in a degree a British race of Australoid type, okay, but there are visible and tangible proofs of the previous existence in our island of such a people. So he says tangible proofs, proving that the Australoid type were the original inhabitants of Britain. Let's see what this word tangible means. I already know what it means, but I'm going to pull it up for y'all. See if I can get this word tangible. All right, meaning sound. All right, tangible meaning undeniable, basically. Evidence, so to speak. Let me pull that up, man. Tangible definition. Every time I start doing the videos, man, the internet go crazy, start going slow. It be Satan trying to take away the word, but you know, it is what it is, you know. Oh hell, computer done froze on me. Come on, man. Damn. Damn, my stuff froze for real, bro. Alright, well. Guess we won't be looking up what tangible means. Y'all can look it up on your own. Come on, bro. There we go. Sorry for that, man. Anyway. So the Australoid type was the original British race, okay? Now watch this. I won't be looking up what tangible means because Google wants to go crazy on me. But, let me read that again. Not only does Mr. Huxley argue for the appearance of certain existing Britons that they represent in a degree of British race of Australoid type, but there are visible and tangible proofs of the previous existence in our island of such a people. These proofs are craniological. We know, says the writer of small pamphlet on this subject, that check this out, that the first inhabitants of Britain, he tries to say, let's say, certain tribes of ancient Britain. No. But anyway, and more especially those of the northern parts, were craniologically of a type approaching to the Negro or to the Australian race. So they have presence of the Negroes and the Australian race. The Negroes will be our people, but once again, I'm not trying to focus on the Negroes, so that's another video of itself on the Negroes of Europe. Yeah, Australian race. In autumn 1865, Mr. Samuel Lane discovered a quantity of human remains near Kais, and discovering a quantity of human remains in Kais, country of Cathus. I'm going to go down to here. The skulls found in chambered mounds in Great Britain, in which Dr. Daniel Wilson refers to being those of the earliest race. And guess what those bones were? The earliest race of those bones were what? Of the Australoid type. The Australoid type. Now let's go down to here. In his remarks upon the Aborigines of Tasmania, Mr. Bonwick refers more than once to their kinship structurally with certain prehistoric Europeans. So the Tasmanians were the look of the Tasmanians were the look of the prehistoric Europeans. Okay. The earliest inhabitants of North Britain were approaching to a Negroid or Australian rather than to a Mongol or Arctic type. So instead of looking Asian or so-called Caucasian, they look Negro or Australian. Okay? And this is a picture of the Aboriginal Tasmanians. A brother put in my comments the other day that the Tasmanians pretty much almost got exterminated, wiped out, which is true. They almost got exterminated and wiped out by the so-called white man, by the way. The lost Tasmanian race. So this is just to give you a view of what the Tasmanians look like. and they almost got wiped out by a war known as the Black War. All right, British colonists versus Aboriginal Tasmanians. All right, but anyway, reading on. Come on, man. Reading on. Page 142. Go down to here. In the Zingari race, I believe Zingari is part of the Romani, like Romania region, I believe. In this Zingari race, then we see much to identify them with the vast prehistoric European people of whom the black Huns are a good enough type. And that tells you that the Huns were so-called black. Because whether as gypsies or as black Huns, they seem to unite the Mongoloid with the Australoid races. They are swarthier than Mongols. Swarthy means black. For those of you that don't know, you can look it up. I recommend Samuel Johnson's 1755 dictionary. Type in the word swarthy. It'll say black. And the example it'll give you is like the swarthy Africans. Okay? Page 227. Goes that word Australians again. Now this is what we have to say about the Irishmen. And wild Irishmen, which is in Gaelic, black Irishmen, according we find the Scottish people generally have tradition of fierce Galwegian race, whom they, though Scots, I'm just going to go down to here, as shameless Irish robbers, or early Scots as Picts of Galloway, and as black Douglases. Those people were Moors or Gypsy, as just stated. So Moors or Gypsies, he's saying those people were black. Where Moor goes back to the word brown, all right, which goes back to the word Negro. But this is not going to be a Negro-focused thing, really. This is once again dealing with the Australoids. I've already told you, or he's already told you, that the first inhabitants of Britain looked like the Aboriginal Australians. Okay? See if we're making time. I got 130 slides, so I'm trying to make it through here without being here all day. Page 16, Ancient Modern Britons. And he's about to tell you right now the so-called white people do not come from Europe. Watch this. And mind you, this is Devin Ritchie, which is a Caucasian man himself. Watch what he says. Page 16, Ancient Modern Britons. The question of the origin of the white races which have now long held the supremacy in these islands. See, now they hold the supremacy of the islands of Britain and of Europe. So the question of the origin of the white races which have now long held the supremacy in these islands scarcely enters into the present inquiry, which has to do more with their colored predecessor. What is a predecessor? Precursor, forerunner, ancestor, forefather. The first. One who held a position before the present holder. So the colored predecessors were there before so-called white people. Period. Alright? While at fourth, as we see hints, that home, if not the cradle of the white race, was Europe. But there seems little probability of any of these theories ever becoming substantiated. So you cannot substantially actually say that the real first inhabited place for the so-called white man was Europe. They're not from Europe. Okay? But there seems little probability of any of these theories ever becoming substantiated. We have just seen that many scientific men hold that there are some grounds for believing that portions, at least, of Europe have formerly been inhabited by black, tawny, and copper-colored races. Okay? Black, tawny, and copper-colored races were the first inhabitants of Europe, man. Okay? Point blank, period. White people do not come from Europe. You know, I could end it right there, but I'm not going to. Alright? I'm not going to. That means what? That means, yes, Japheth was a so-called black man. I said this before. People try to buck up against me when I did the video where I stated that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all so-called black people. Okay? But they were different phenotypes and so forth. Alright? Just like if you look at an Australian Aboriginal, he does not look like a Sudanese person. Alright? And I do not look like either one of them. So, all so-called black people are not the same. But I told you, yes, Shem, Ham, and Japheth were so-called black. Period. So was their father. Alright, now let's deal with the Celts. Remember, when it said the sons of Japheth, we already proved that. We already proved that the original inhabitants of Europe were black. What did he say? Hold on, let's go back. Let's go back, actually. He said, black, tawny, or copper-colored races. Alright. The people that inhabited Europe. Now let's go back to where Japheth was at. Okay, Japheth, progenitor of many tribes inhabiting Eastern Europe, and it used the word Celts, Gomer, right? Well, let's tackle the Celts real quick. Let's tackle the Celts. Let's see if I'm still recording. Bet. The Celts, right? Well, this is a guy, or who are the Celts? Part of the racial group which comes from Scotland, Wales, Ireland, and some other areas such as Brittany. Well, this is a guy by the name of James H. Anderson, born in, once again, mid-1800s, 1857, died in 1934. He wrote a book titled Riddles of Prehistoric Times. This is page 57 of that same book, Riddles of Prehistoric Times. The Iberians and Anointines inhabited the western and southern part of Europe, the northern part of Africa. In fact, all parts reached the Mediterranean Sea. The Basque in Spain and France, the Little Dark Welshmen, the Scotch, and Black Celts by the west of the Shannon River in Ireland, as well as the same and of the men in Brittany, Black Celts in Brittany, and Aquitaine in France, and Gantes in the Canary Islands, and the Berbers in Africa, are all probably the remnants of the race. Okay, so they were also called dark-skinned people. Okay, the Black Celts, the Celts. Okay, now when you think of the Celts today, that's not what you're thinking. Let me see if I can type in something real quick. So I'm gonna try it anyway, even though I almost froze my computer last time. See what Google says the Celts look like. I'm about to give you a fake image, like they like to do. Like they like to do. Okay, let me highlight this for you. Like I told you guys in that Black Before Rome video, a lot of these people be LARPing, man. A lot of these people be saying they something that they ain't. That's just the bottom line of it, man. Now, he mentioned the Black Celts, right? The Black Celts. Come on, man. Load up. Internet be going slow, man. Alright, here we go. This is what they tell you the Celts look like. But yeah, they were lying, man. They were lying. Shocker, shocker. Don't the scriptures tell you he's a liar and the father of it? Hold on, Slack. Let me go get this water real fast. Okay. Alright, I'm back. So this is a fake image of the Celts. Of course it is. But anyway. So, Black Celts. Let's go to the same book. Page 58. Okay. As the Ice Age probably drove them south, some few probably survived as cave dwellers, but the larger part perished. The first inhabitants of southern Europe, southern Africa, Arabia, France, and the British Islands were a race of small men who did not average in height more than about 4 feet 5 inches. They were of a slight build with dark complexion. They were an African people. Okay? So he sure tells you the original people of Europe, Northern Africa, which means all you North African people. Arabia, France, and British. They were of a slight build with dark complexion. They were an African people. Okay? That's point blank, period. The Celts, the original Celts were so-called black. Okay? He touches on this as well. Devin Ritchie touches on this in Ancient Modern Britons, page 12. Where he states, where we had the Iberians, and extreme exponents of the theory, do not hesitate to speak of the Iberian ancestors of the people of England, recognizing the racial characteristics in the small swarthy Welshman, swarthy means black, the small dark Highlander, and the Black Celts. Okay? As Iberians, they are of a swarthy hue. Okay? They are more Australian than Mongoloid. Speaks for itself. Y'all can pause it and read the whole thing if y'all want. I'm doing this for now. Let's go into Southern Europe. Southern Europe, that would be going back to the Japheth book. Going back to Japheth. So we deal with the Celts. The Ionians or Greeks. That's in the Southern Europe. That's in what you call the Mediterranean. Okay? Let's deal with the Southern Greeks. Or the Southern Greeks. Southern Europe. Alright, the Mediterranean. Italy and all that, right? Okay, well, the Minoans were in the Bronze Age. The Minoan civilization, Bronze Age civilization of Crete, that flourished from about 3000 BCE to about 1100 BCE. All right, the Minoan civilization. Even here, when you look at the Minoan civilization, you see that they were so-called dark-skinned people. Okay, dark-skinned people. And they had, this is the whitewashed version. They probably tried to use typification to whiten it. As you can see, this cow right here is brown, but it has the white spots. They probably tried to chip that away. I don't really know, but here's a Minoan fresco. As you can see, the Minoans were dark-skinned people. These are the inhabitants of southern Europe. The Minoans resemble the Australian Aboriginals. Here is the Cretans / Minoans paying tribute in Egypt. Once again, they're dark-skinned people. Okay, similar to the Australian Aboriginal. Okay, here's another picture of the Minoans, similar to the Aboriginal Australian. Okay, here's a big old picture. This is an unrestored picture, and by restored, I mean unaltered. It's an unaltered picture. Once again, you can see that they're so-called black. These are the real Minoans. These are fake images, whitenized images, so forth, so on and so forth. I already showed you the books to prove that. Now let's move on. Let's see what William Boyd Dawkins had to say, who was a British geoscientist. William Boyd Dawkins wrote a book. He was born in the 1800s as well. William Boyd Dawkins wrote a book titled Early Man in Britain and His Place in the Tertiary Period by William Boyd Dawkins. See what he had to say. Page 323, which he states, from the intimate manner in which they are associated with the Iberians by classical writers, coupled with their agreement in small stature and swarthy complexion, it may be inferred with tolerable certainty that they were related to each other, the dark-skinned people. Okay, they belong to the same non-Aryan branch. When he says non-Aryan, he means non-Caucasian. All right, that made-up term Aryan, and they changed it to Indo-European. Now they're Caucasians. You know, they just keep moving the name. But whatever. It is also by no means improbable that the small, swarthy Etruscans, whose empire extended in the earliest times recorded by history north of the Alps and the Tyrol, and who held dominion also over Lombardy, belonged to the same non-Aryan stock. These are okay. They were contemporaneous and were driven away from their ancient possessions by the same invading peoples. The invading peoples in this instance would be the Caucasians. Okay? They were either bred out of existence, killed, or kicked out of their home place, or they just assimilated. Okay? That's what happened. In my belief, the Iberians of France and Spain, the Silures of Wales, the Ligures of southern Gaul and northern Italy, and the small, dark Etruscans are to be looked upon as ethnological islands isolated by successive invasions, pointing out that if we could go deep enough in past, that we should find that the whole of Europe was inhabited solely by a swarthy, non-Aryan population. So William Boyd Dawkins straight up tells you that the whole of Europe was inhabited by a swarthy, non-Aryan population, which means a non-Caucasian population. That's what that translates to. All right, which brings me to the Etruscans, the people also known as the Etrurians. All right, the land of Etruria, inhabited by the Etruscans. I touched on this in my Black Before Rome video. Italy between the Tiber and Arno rivers, west and south of the Apennines. Okay, so the Etruscans. Well, let's see what Godfrey Higgins had to say. He was an historian in the 1700s, born in the 1700s. See what Godfrey Higgins had to say about the Etrurians. The Etrurians are the Etruscans. Okay, which once again, the Etruscans are who? The people that inhabited Italy. Okay, back in the days. Page 216 of Anacalypsis by Godfrey Higgins. Mr. Franklin makes an observation that, which is new to me, that the ancient Etrurians, which are the Etruscans, the ancient Etrurians had the countenances of Negroes, the same as the image of Buddha in India. So he's saying that the Etrurians, the Etruscans, had the same countenance, the same skin complexion as the Negroes, meaning they were dark-skinned. And the reason he mentioned like the Buddha is because the original Buddha was black. Okay, this is a statue known as the Black Buddha. This is an African man. He's got the same ears, the same hair. That's because they're the same person. I touched on that in this video. India was black. In fact, you want more information on that. So this image right here of the Etruscans is a fake, false image The Etruscans were swarthy, dark-skinned peoples with the countenance that resembled the Negro. Okay, so all these things they say are Etruscans and Etrurians, fake news. Okay, fake news. All right. Here's a picture of a black Etruscan, 300 BC. Etruscan terracotta, 600 BC. Looks like a so-called Samoan. This is an Etruscan antifix, 500 BC. The first Romans were black people called the Etruscans. Read the full history, even though Caucasians disagree. That's right, man. All right, I touched more on depth on this in Black Before Rome if you want more information on that. Okay, now, what happened to the Etruscans? What happened to the Etruscans? Well, let's see what it says here. Etruscan civilization. It states, the Etruscan civilization flourished in central Italy between the 8th and 3rd century BCE. The culture was renowned in antiquity for its rich mineral resources and as a major Mediterranean trading power. Now watch what it says what happened to the Etruscans. Much of its culture and even history was either obliterated, meaning destroyed, annihilated, or assimilated into that of its conqueror, Rome. So most Etruscan history was destroyed and obliterated by the Romans. The Romans at this time that it's talking about, the Romans were Caucasian. Okay? The Romans were Caucasians and they obliterated the history of the Etruscans for the most part. Now, the next question would be, who are the Romans biblically? I already proved to you that Japheth was inhabited. Europe was originally inhabited by so-called black people, akin hue to the Australoids, akin look to the Australoids, so-called Australoids. So who were the Romans biblically? Well, we got to start off in the beginning of Genesis. We're going to prove who the Romans are. We're going to go through the precepts. I've done this before. Genesis 36:1. These are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Genesis 36:9. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's son. Eliphaz, the son of Ada, his wife of Esau. So Eliphaz. So through Eliphaz, which is Esau's son, through Eliphaz you get Amalek. Genesis 36:12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. So through Eliphaz you get Esau's grandson, which is Amalek. Now through Amalek you're going to get a group of people known as the Agagites. 1 Samuel 15:32. This says Samuel, bring ye hither to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag came unto him delicately, and Agag said, surely the bitterness of death is past. So Agag was the king of the Amalekites. Later on, you're going to find there's going to be a group of people known as the Agagites, which links back directly with Agag, who was an Amalekite. Okay? That's in Esther 3:1, which states, Esther 3:1, after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. So Haman was the son of Hammedatha, and he was an Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So if he was an Agagite, that means that he was really an Amalekite, which means he's the grandson of Esau. Okay, now you follow me? He was an Agagite. Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. Additions to Esther. Now you go to Additions to Esther 16:10. It'll tell you, for Ammon, a Macedonian, the son of Hammedatha. Remember, Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. So the Agagites are also the Macedonians. Okay? So Ammon was a Macedonian, the son of Hammedatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. He was a stranger from the Persian blood. He was a Macedonian. Okay? A Macedonian is an Agagite. An Agagite is an Amalekite. An Amalekite is the grandson of Esau, the son of Eliphaz. Okay? So the Macedonians, right? You know who else was a Macedonian? Alexander the Creep. Alexander the Freak, who they call Alexander the Great. Okay? Alexander the Third of Macedon. He succeeded his father Philip. Now you go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. It tells you, and it happened after that, Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chedum, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. So this is when the Macedonians conquered Greece. Before that, before this time period, you had what was known as the Dorian Greeks, but you had so-called dark-skinned people who were in the land of Greece. They were ended up conquered by the Macedonians. The Macedonians are Caucasians. So in the same way that Europe used to be inhabited by so-called black people, white people, so-called white people, really come from Central Asia. Okay? Macedonia. All right, this is Alexander the Free, Alexander the Great. All right, Macedonia. All right, next to Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, Central Asia, part of Europe. All right, like that Eurasian part. All right, and the Macedonians became the first. Alexander conquered Alexander the Macedonian conquered Greece. All right, and then so the Macedonians became the Greek Empire. The Greeks turned into the Romans, and the Romans are Edomites, and I'm going to prove that. This is Dictionary of Judaism in the Biblical Period by Jacob Nessner. Okay, it states Edom is, shout out to Council of the Wise. It says Edom is compared to a pig and to an eagle, as is Rome and Edom. Seir and Esau are all symbols for Rome. So the Romans are the Edomites, point blank, period. Now, I'm actually going to tell you why this group of people end up inhabiting so many different parts that were not originally their own. That's because of the blessing that was given to Esau. Okay, Esau's blessing. Okay, but ultimately Esau is going to be overthrown and destroyed. But we're going to go to Esau's blessing. All right, I had this guy try to, and I had this all the time. Esau was actually brown. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, man. It makes me laugh. But Genesis chapter 27, we're going to go to verse 38. Genesis 27:38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So he started crying like a little crybaby. All right. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. So the dwelling, the blessing for Esau, the dwelling for him was the fatness of the earth. I'm gonna deal with that in a minute. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. This shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. All right, so originally he served us, being the Israelites, broke that yoke off his neck, and he started living by the sword. Now, when it's talking about, and Esau hated Jacob, by the way, but anyway, it says when it talks about by the sword thou shalt live, that's because what's this man known for doing? Even what was this guy famously known for doing? Rape, robbing, and murdering. All right, that's what he's famous for doing. And by the sword thou shalt live. Now it says, behold, the dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. What does that mean, the dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth? Meaning this man is going to be found everywhere, man. He's going to be in all these different continents and countries, right? Let's prove that. All right, better that dwelling should be the fatness of the earth. Let's prove that. There's a saying known as the fat of the land, the best or riches of anything. All right, the Bible has it as eat the fat of the land. Okay, and this man encompasses many lands. All right, so that's how he ended up in Europe. All right, the fat of the land. Remember, he was blessed with the fatness of the earth. Now, with that blessing, that's how he ended up. He lived by the sword. He was killing people, conquering. All right, but like the scriptures say, he that lives by the sword shall die by the sword. But anyway, what percent of Europe is white? According to the estimates, at least 95% of Europe, including Russia, are ethnically European. Quote unquote ethnically European, even though you guys are not the original Europeans. So 95% of Europe are white. Didn't used to be the case. New Zealand, 74% of New Zealand are white. That's another place that they're at. Even though we know the original people of New Zealand were not white people. That's why I laugh when people are like, oh, well, you know, why are there so many white people in Europe? Don't you understand? That same thing can be said about America, Australia, New Zealand, Tasmania, even parts of South Africa, different parts of Central Asia. You can say, oh, well, you know, man, if white people are from Europe, why are so many of them there now? Well, the same reason why these people were the original inhabitants of New Zealand. But guess what? Now New Zealand is 74% white. They took over New Zealand, right? That's them getting that blessing of the fatness of the earth. Australia, 87% of people Australian are Caucasian. But we know the original Australians were what? The Australian Aboriginal people. They were dark-skinned people. But now look who's over Australia. We know the United States. It says 69% of the United States are Caucasians, which I don't even believe that number. But we know that America, the United States, was inhabited by two different groups of people. both indigenous people of America. And now look, okay, that's the fatness of the earth. Countries with the largest white or European descent populations. Russia. And this is actually not even the iceberg, because you got North America, you got Canada, you got Australia, you got New Zealand, you got South Africa, Russia. This is all of Europe. So let's count continents real quick. The continent of America, that's one continent. They're in Africa, that's another continent. Australia is a continent. One continent, two continent, three continent, four continents. 5. So they're prevalent in 5 continents. Like I said, this is actually incorrect, because they're also in South America and they're also in Central Asia still. Alright, let's prove that. There's actually more all over the earth, right? Now, yeah, Central Asia. What's Central Asia? Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, just to name a few. Central Asia, right? Well, these are people of Central Asia. Kazakhstan woman, Uzbekistan woman, Tajikistan woman, they're all still so-called white Caucasians. They're descendants from the Caucasian Muslims known as the Turks. These are Kazakhstan children. Once again, this is in Central Asia, so they're also prevalent in Asia. Okay, Kazakhstan children, so-called white people, Caucasians. The Oghuz Turks is a book you can read titled The 13th Tribe, which I did not include, where he deals with the Oghuz Turks. And by the way, the 13th Tribe was written by a Jewish man. What was his name? I think it was Arthur Koestler. And he was found hanging from his chandelier or ceiling fan, I can't remember which one, because he wrote a book basically stating that there's no way that his people are the original people of the book. That's what he said, according to him. Anyway, Oghuz Turks. Today, the residents of Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Balkans, Iraq, Syria, descendants of the Oghuz Turks. And where do the Balkan states go back to? Macedonia, Greece. Macedonia and Greece, which go back to the Edomites. Remember, Macedonia. Okay? A Macedonian is an Agagite. An Agagite is an Amalekite. And an Amalekite is the grandson of Esau, man. Okay? Am I making sense? So these people come from Central Asia. They call themselves Caucasians. The word Asian is in the word Caucasian. And they come from Asia. They're not from Europe. Okay? Let's see this real quick. The likeliest source of populations who later inhabited Europe. This is dealing with Central Asians. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. Once again, Caucasian Muslims. They're the people that likeliest source of populations who later inhabited Europe. They're not the first people that inhabited Europe. Alright, now let's go to Science Daily. This is Science Daily. Let's see what it has to say. It states, previous work suggests that Europeans descended from 2 ancestral groups, indigenous hunter-gatherers and early European farmers. This new study shows that there was also a 3rd ancestral group, the ancient North Eurasians, who contributed genetic material to almost all present-day Europeans. So the genetic material of the Eurasians, which is going back to Central Asia, like I told you, the Central Asians. So the 3rd group of Eurasian now goes for all present-day Europeans. The Caucasian, once again, he's from Central Asia. He's not from Europe. He is not Japheth. Now someone can say, well, it told you earlier that Japheth was also part of the people of Asia. No. Because Esau comes from Mount Seir, and he had to get rid of the Horites in Mount Seir to get there. Okay, so so not only are they in all these places, they're also in Central Asia, and they're also in the Middle East. The Middle East region, Caucasian Muslims. This woman, she's a young Muslim Arabian woman. She looks just like a straight up Caucasian, right? All right. The Turanian peoples, the Turkic peoples. These are the Turks. All right, Caucasian Muslims. All right, the Turks had a giant empire, 1600 AD. The Turks were all over Egypt, parts of Arabia, Palestine, Syria, Iraq, all that. You had these people invading those places, which is why you get these new Turk, mulattoes, and quadroons. Albanian, Moroccan, Jordan, Saudi Arabian, Cyprus, Egypt, Bahrain, Algerian. All these people, they all look like so-called Caucasians with tans. That's why you get these people that look like this, man. Because the Caucasian Turks invaded the Middle East. Like I said, he was given the fatness of the earth. This man is everywhere, man. Okay? And speaking of on the Arab topic, real quick, so-called Arab, let's go to Jean-Francois Champollion, who is known as the father of Egyptology. Okay, he was born in 1790. All right, died in 1832. He wrote a book, Jean-Francois Champollion, Letters, Expeditions of Egypt to Nubia, 1828. That's in French. I probably butchered how that says, but anyway, this is what it states. The first tribes that inhabited Egypt, that is the Nile Valley between the Syrian Cataract and the sea, came from Abyssinia to Sennaar. The ancient Egyptians belonged to the race quite similar to Kenois or Barbarous, present inhabitants of Nubia. The Nubians were so-called black. And he's telling you that the ancient Egyptians were so-called black because the Nubians, once again, are so-called black. Now watch this. In the Copts of Egypt, we do not find any of the characteristic features of an ancient Egyptian population. The Copts are the result of crossbreeding with all the nations that have successfully dominated Egypt. It is wrong to seek them the principal features of the old race. And here's a picture of the Copts, which are hybridized between so-called Arabians, so-called Egyptians, and so-called white people, the Caucasian Turk Muslims. Okay? And for those of you that are incredulous, why do you think that according to the U.S. Census, Middle Eastern and North African people are classified as white in the U.S. Census? Arabs are counted as white in the American Census. There's a reality about a race in the U.S. that has confounded many people of Middle Eastern and North African descent. The federal government officially categorizes people with origins in Lebanon, Iran, Egypt, and other countries in the MENA regions as white. You would wonder why, but I don't wonder why. It's because they intermix with people. Once again, they were given the fatness of the earth. That was their blessing. I touched even more in detail on this in the video I did titled Original Arab. Okay, so not only are they in all these places, they said, the largest white European populations, and they're also in the Middle East as well as Central Asia, and they're in South America. They're also in South America. Okay, countries of South America. They're also in South America. All right, famous people who you didn't know were Hispanic. Yeah, blonde hair. All right, she calls herself Hispanic, quote unquote. All right, 31 to 40% of populations are Caucasians. All right, 90.7% Caucasians. Brazil, and that's not counting this. Look, see, once again, he just like he did the Middle East, he started marrying a lot of the indigenous people there, thus producing this progeny. Okay, so in South America as well. And there's a scripture that talks about him gathering all nations in Habakkuk 2 and I'm gonna start at 4. This is Habakkuk 2 and 4. Also some people call it Habakkuk. All right, it states, "Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith." Who is the one that's soul is not upright? That's Esau. "Yet also because he transgresseth by wine, he is proud. He is a proud man. Neither keepeth at home. Who enlargeth his desire is hell, and as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people." So he gathers unto himself all nations and heapeth unto him all people. Even America today is known as a melting pot. In time past, the Romans had a concept known as the bundle of sticks, which was basically the same concept as the American concept. Okay, and he gathered to him all nations. Okay, rather it's South America or rather it's the Middle East or rather it's these other places as well. He gathered on them all nations. He has the fatness of the earth. Now you can say, well, it doesn't say Esau there, brother. It says, "Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay." So he increaseth that which is not his. He inhabiteth lands that he was not born in. Okay? Am I making sense? Am I making any sense to you people, man? Now look, we're going to prove this talking about Esau. "Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for the booties unto them?" They're going to hit a lick on Esau, man, because thou hast spoiled many nations. All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. So even though the so-called white man has spoiled all these nations, guess what? All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood and for the violence of the land of the city and all that dwell therein. So all the other nations, the heathen, the Gentiles, are going to turn on the Edomites. And that leads up to prophecy in Obadiah chapter 1, which states, verse 1, Obadiah chapter 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. So the heathen are rising up against Edom in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And this is the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? So he's small among the heathen and greatly despised. The heathen are going to rise up against her in battle. That's World War III, by the way. Another video I'll do at another time. But look, he said what? The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. Okay? The proud man that never keeps at home. He gathers unto him all nations. All right, he increaseth that which is not his. And though he spoiled many nations, the nations are going to turn around and spoil him. That's why you have that BRICS organization going up. That's why you got many things. You got many alliances going up. Arabia clicking up with Russia. China clicking up with Russia. BRICS happening in South America, clicking up with Russia. Parts of Africa clicking up with Russia and China. That's biblical prophecy. Whether you want to believe it or not, it's just facts. Okay? It's just facts. Alexander Winchell, see what he had to say. Alexander Winchell, born in the 1800s. 1824 was when he was born. Alexander Winchell did a thing called Our Remote Ancestry. Page 246, he says, Indo-Europeans, quote-unquote Aryans and or Caucasians, Indo-Europeans are known to have been in Europe as early as 2000 BC. So, Indo-Europeans are not from Europe. Okay? The Aryan, Indo-European, Caucasian, they are not Japhetic like they like to say. They are not Japhetic. Okay? They're the Edomites. Okay, an article. Ancient Europeans mysteriously vanished 4,500 years ago. Tia Ghost, Live Science, staff writer, April 23rd, 2013. Okay? It says, we've established that the genetic foundations for modern Europe were only established in the mid-Neolithic after this major genetic transition around 4,000 years ago. And the timing's off, by the way. But it says, we have established the genetic foundations for modern Europe only 4,000 years ago. All right, so the quote-unquote modern Europeans have only been there 4,000 years ago. And that's alleged. Like I said, the time is really off. Because I told you the Minoans are really black, or the Minoans are really dark-skinned. So are the Etruscans. So are the Dorian Greeks. Okay? This is a PNAS article. U.S. Natural Library of Medicine. Now look, it says, the questionable contribution of the Neolithic and Bronze Age to European craniological form. I'm going to go down to here. It says, the surprise is that the Neolithic peoples of Europe and their Bronze Age successors are not closely related to the modern inhabitants. So look, once again, the Bronze Age people like the Minoans are not even related to its modern inhabitants. Okay? Neither sample ties the Cro-Magnon as once suggested. Okay? And it says the Neolithic people are linked to the sub-Saharan Africans, Canary Islanders, that type of thing. So once again, the modern inhabitants of Europe do not match the people of the Bronze Age. Okay? Scott Elliott George Francis wrote a book, Prehistoric Man and His Story, where he states that Negroid Grimaldi, these Aragacians and their Magdalenian descendants pervaded all Central and Southern Europe. And he says that they were Negroids. Alright, an old African race, Negroid stock. Alright, in Spain, Brittany, Sierra, Sardinia, Ostdorf, Cathis. Okay. Negroid, akin to Negroes, black skin race. Alright, Negroid of Grimaldi. And once again, this is an Australian Aboriginal. This is Cheddar Man. Do you see the resemblance? Okay. 26,000 years old, yada yada. Once again, the timelines are off. Grimaldi Man. Alright. This is an alleged Grimaldi Man. This is an Australian Aboriginal. Okay. This is the Ivory Bangle Lady, 4th century AD. Alright. An indigenous Aboriginal. The Sungir Man, 34,000 years ago, allegedly.
All right, this is the Sun-Gear Man, Australian Aboriginal. Okay, and the Sun-Gear, I believe that's in Romania, right? Romania's Carpathian Mountains. The Carpathian, first Europeans. All right, so I could end it right there, but I'm gonna touch on something real quick on Japheth going back real fast before I get out of here. But that proved that the original Europeans were not so-called white people, and also this artwork I did look fire to me. But nah, Aryans, no, sir. Once again, they're the Edomites. But yeah, they tell you Japheth looked like this. No, he didn't. But no surprise to tell you Shem looked like this. To tell you Ham like this. I guess Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all Caucasians. Boulder Dash. But they like to say that Japheth means fair. And fair means beautiful, by the way. So when they say fair, the fair races. When they say fair, you think of fair skinned. You think of a pale skin, pale complexion, like on the screen, right? But the original word fair just means beautiful. Okay, the word fair means good, pleasant, agreeable, beautiful. Beautiful, attractive, yapa, Japheth. Okay? So Japheth means beautiful, attractive. It has nothing to do with no damn white skin. Okay, that's a modern Caucasian term for fair skin because they want to associate their skin with beautiful. Like you know how Negroes say black is beautiful. But guess what? They can say fair skin is beautiful. That's why they say fair. All right, they try to make themselves seem better. That's why you got angel's food cake, which is white, devil's food cake, which is black. That's why the dictionary, the word black tells you it means wicked, devoid of light, evil. But white means good, light, all that, right? That's why they call themselves white, even though they're really red. Okay? And dealing with the fact, when it says beautiful, it's talking about Japheth's land was beautiful. Okay, Japheth's land was beautiful. I typed in world's best places to visit. Paris, Bora Bora, Rome, Swiss Alps, London, England, right? These are a lot of European countries. All right, his land was beautiful, Japheth. Okay? Just like Ham's word means warm or hot. Ham's place, the hottest continent is Africa. And we know Ham is the progenitor of the so-called black Africans. Okay? So I just wanted to touch on that before I got out of there too. So that debunked that whole, Japheth and his sons were made entirely white. That's cap. That was exposed. Yeah, man, Lord willing, that lesson was edifying. That was a long one. But with that, I say peace to the 12. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father, the Most High Yahawah, in the name of His only begotten Son, yahawashi. Yahawah is the name of the Heavenly Father, who is commonly known as God. Yahawashi is the Savior of the nation of Israel, who is commonly known as Jesus Christ. Hopefully that lesson was edifying. Yeah, man. I say shalom, which means peace to you people listening and learning. To you brothers doing this work, truth and sincerity, and to you elders that's been doing this thing before me, man. I told you guys that I was going to prove all nations by the time I do all my videos. I'm going to prove who all the different nations are, man. All right, and Japheth is not the so-called white man. Do not believe those people, man. Okay, and they've been running with that for years, but it's not the truth. Okay. Once again, Shem, Ham, and Japheth's sons were all dark-skinned people, Shem, Ham, and Japheth were all dark-skinned people like their father, Noah. Don't believe the hype these people be telling you, man. They be lying. Alright? So, debunked. Anyway, man, I ain't gonna be too much longer. And with that, I say, shalom. Yeah, I'll be there in a minute.